In the essence, in the essence of time, I'm going to get started. Uh, Thank you. If everybody could do the Pledge of Allegiance, I pledge allegiance to the
To the
flag
flag
of the
of the
United
United
States of America,
and to the
to the
republic
republic
public,
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty.
liberty,
and
justice for all.
Thank you. Before we get started, I just wanted to little PSA, let everybody know I'm going to try to keep this concise tonight. Last week on Thursday, my daughter, who's a nurse, tested positive for COVID. And then on Saturday, I got sick, and Sunday, my husband got sick. So it's kind of going through all of us right now. And I would like to do the business that we have to do and just try to keep things moving as we can. So in recognition of that, we have a proclamation tonight, but it's kind of wordy. So I'm going to actually have Mike, please read it, and we can go through it.
Sure.
It's in
Yeah,
recognition of the Fair Housing Month for the month of April.
Very good. I can read it. It's in the pack. Everyone, it's in the packet on page 3 of 41. So whereas April 2020 marks the 52nd anniversary of the passage of Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, commonly known as the Federal Fair Housing Act. And whereas fair housing is the legal right of every American and is important in ensuring all Americans a free choice of housing location, limited only by one's means and or desires. And whereas this law guarantees that housing throughout the United States should be made available to all citizens without regard to race, color, national origin, sex, religion, familial status, or the presence of children or disability. And whereas this law guarantees that housing throughout the state of Connecticut should be made available to all citizens without regard to race, color, national origin, ancestry, sex, religion, familial status, or the presence of children, disability, marital status, sexual orientation, age, except minors, lawful source of income, veteran status or gender identity or expression. And whereas the laws of this nation and our state seek to ensure such equality of choice for all transactions involving housing, now therefore the Tolland Town Council, on behalf of the citizens of Tolland, proclaims April 2020 as Fair Housing Month and requests that all citizens and businesses of our community reaffirm their commitment to fair housing for all and wholeheartedly recognize these rights and responsibilities throughout the year. In witness whereof, I have here to set my hand and cause the seal of the town of Tolland to be affixed on this 14th day of April, 2020.
Thank you. Thank you. Next up is public petitions and communications and public participation, any subject within the jurisdiction of the town council with a 2-minute limit. And just to kind of go over this again, if you are online and you have signed in, you can raise your hand. And the order in which you raise your hand will be reflected to the host, and we will call on you one at a time. There is currently a chat function if you want to send in a question via chat, but that will go directly to the host, who at this time is Mr. Rosen. He is going to keep that tonight, I think. Any questions will go directly to him and to nobody else. And if you called in on a telephone, you hit *9.
I believe it's *9 to raise your hand. Yep.
*9 to raise your hand, and we will recognize you as they come in. So do we have any public participation tonight?
Is there a point of order, though? I see Brenda's hand up.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we allow Chief Lytle to do his report because of situations that might be happening in town before we go to public participation. You know, this way he can take care of the residents.
John, do you want to do that?
I think he's on a call at the moment.
Okay, I just wanted to, free him up if he needed to get going and allow.
I'm monitoring right now. It doesn't sound. I don't have an update yet. It's an ATV accident, but keep going for right now if you don't mind.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Yep.
John.
So withdraw that.
Yes, that's what's going for now.
Okay, so public participation. If anybody has anything they would like to say, 2-minute
I,
limit?
I believe Mr. Williams technically has his hand up, even though it's the old-fashioned way, not the technical way. So,
Oops. Hi. Yes, I'll keep it quick. I enjoyed watching a planning and zoning meeting last night, and I had a public hearing coming up on the Inland Wetlands Commission Thursday, only to find out today it was postponed to May 21st. And I tried getting an answer why that happened. I talked to Michael and I also talked to Heidi, and I got two different answers, and I'm very disappointed. And I believe there's a couple issues, but I would, at least if they're not going to have the meeting, and unless you can tell me why they're not going to have it Thursday, which it seemed to go very well last night with planning and zoning, and they are having a meeting, but they're not going to have the public hearing. So I would like to know why, for one. Like I said, I got two different answers, and it seems like it's involved with the town, the parcel's involved with polywogs and this and that. Another month delay, it seems ridiculous. So I just like to see that Michael could get some answers. I'd like to see an email, or I'd like to see why this happened, because there's no reason not to have the public hearing Thursday.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Williams. Does anybody else have any public comment or participation? Well, I can't speak for them, Mr. Williams. I don't know exactly what's going on. I can tell you that all of the councils and boards that have had these meetings have pushed off public hearings from the first meeting just so they can get used to the technology. But again, I'm not inlands and wetlands, so I really can't speak to that. I can just tell you what we have done and all the other boards have done. We've had a meeting, but we didn't have a public hearing just until we got used to, most of us had them by our second meeting, but just to get used to the technology and understand how to use it and what we're doing. So I can say, if I were you, you mentioned something about an email. So if you could send something in, I think you can request a public hearing before the month is up, but I would suggest sending in an email to Mr. Rosen and probably Heidi to work on that.
Yeah, I started this in August 15th, 2019. And due to the circumstances of vernal pools and, you know, it seems like there's a conflict of interest with Heidi. She was the designer of the Tolland Village area, and it seems to be whether she was the one to defer it. But anyways, the Wetlands Commission meets once a month, not twice a month. So when you've gone through it, we're doing it, town council tonight, they did it last night for planning and zoning, or whether it's the chairman, I feel I deserve the answer of why we're not having it.
I understand that, Mr. Williams, but we're not inlands and wetlands. So, you know, we don't dictate their meetings. As I suggested, you can ask for a special meeting so it doesn't go the month, but you know, we don't set the inlands wetlands meeting schedules. We have no direct influence over them. So I would suggest, you know, sending in a request and working with the town manager and Heidi to try to get a special meeting on the schedule. I know for a public hearing you have to notice it and everything else, but I don't know. Does anybody else have any? Oh,
yeah, if I may, Madam Chair, Mike Rosen, town manager speaking. Hi, Mr. Williams. As you mentioned, we had spoken later in the afternoon today, and thanks for bringing it to my attention. I know I had told you on the phone a couple of the reasons why the public hearing was postponed, that portion, but I did just want to let you know that I sent you an email. I tried to quickly scramble and get the information you're requesting. So I did send you an email at 6:45 right before this meeting started with the email chain that shows that the chair had requested the postponement. And the other thing was I wanted to just throw out there that Ms. Nuccio mentioned was that there is an amenability right now. The Wetlands Commission could potentially set a special meeting on the April 30th, which I believe is 2 weeks out. And they're open to it if you were to send an email, as the chair said. So I think we can get you on the books for a special meeting so you don't have to wait till May 21st.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate it. And we'll get you the email.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything for public petitions or communications?
Excuse me, could I just get Mr. Williams' address?
Oh, sorry.
22 Renansky Lane.
I'm sorry about that, Lisa.
No problem. Thank you so much.
I forgot to make that announcement. Before you talk, you just have to say your name and address. Sorry. All right, not seeing anybody else's hand raised for public participation. We have no public hearing items tonight. Reports of boards and committees responsible to the council. I don't think we have any of that. Reports of town council liaisons. Let's start with Brenda.
I want to just quick check in with the chief to see if he needed to go. Are you all set?
Yes, we are still. My guys just got on scene.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm liaison for 3 boards and commissions. Blake has not had a meeting. Planning and zoning. We worked last night. We had a meeting last night. It went exceptionally well. They did a very good job with their meeting. They had a public hearing, in fact, that was to look at allowing by special permit gasoline service stations in the community commercial zone. That's the area, Rockville Equipment to Brookside Gardens, in that area. They had the public hearing. There was some participation by the applicant and by the neighbors. The request was denied. They felt that a gas station did not fit in that community commercial zone. They had some old business that they took care of. One thing that some people might be interested to know about is that the quarry is now under a new operator. So we will be receiving a map update about them. And that's pretty much it. I will refer you to specifics in the meeting, but that was it for them. For the Board of Education, there's a plethora of information there. The nurses' contract was approved, for one thing. They are obviously doing virtual learning, and it's they've done a phenomenal job deploying over 800 devices so that the students can continue with their virtual learning needs. As many of us parents have found out, this week's April vacation was abbreviated to allow Monday for a day off for all the teachers and for the students, but they continued their learning this week. There was a very robust discussion about that. There is going to probably be a look at having a few days off next month to give the teachers and the students and parents a little bit of a break. Over the weekend, there was a phenomenal parade. I should say 4 parades that went around the town. It was a very exciting time for my family, and from what I've seen on social media and my neighbors that went out, we had a great time taking a look at the parade, being able to see current and past teachers for our students. The parade was enhanced by members of the Tolland Fire Department in some of their apparatus. In some other, I think maybe some public works. Mike, was there some public works?
For the parade, yes, that they were involved.
Okay, because with 4 different ones, I didn't get to see them all. TEPTO was able to put up a great sign at TIS that helps enhance the area and gives us a little bit, our spirits, a little bit of a boost. And it was great to see so many families staying outside with signs of encouragement, and then seeing all of the decorated vehicles in the parade. I think that really lifted a lot of spirits. So, and I've received lots of great feedback about the fantastic job of our superintendent keeping people's spirits up and taking a look at positive mental health through his daily updates. I see he's on the line. So thank you, Dr. Willett. Your efforts have been greatly appreciated and noted. Those are the highlights. I mean, you guys have done a lot more. Oh, you also improved the 2020 and 2021 school year calendar. Is that correct?
Yeah, the nurse's contract though is going for a second reading.
Oh, it's going for a second reading. Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize for that.
No, it's okay.
So that's everything for that. I'm on 3 committees. Sustainable CT did not have a meeting this month. Or yeah, they did not have a meeting since the last one. Our tourism meeting for Monday was canceled or postponed due to weather. Unfortunately, that impacts outages impact our virtual meetings. And news about the census. We are still the highest responding town in the state of Connecticut with 66.6% self-response rates. So we're doing a phenomenal job. I think that has a lot to do with how proactive we were about creating a committee that took a look at all the different cross sections of the town, making sure everybody was getting the word out early. And now that we have the pandemic going on, we're using social media to help get more people to respond. If you haven't responded yet, sometime this you're going to get an invitation in the mail. It's going to be the actual paper census form for you to fill out and to mail back in. So be on the lookout for that. And those are all my updates.
Thank you. Steve?
None of my committees met. However, hopefully not stepping on Kurt's toes, I did attend the Agriculture Commission meeting last Monday. At the meeting, they did decide to cancel their farm to table event, but are instead working with Becker's. It's in the works to do a farm to takeout event so that they can still raise funds and also support local agriculture. So that's great news.
It's to me. Is that it, Steve?
Yep, sorry, that's it.
Yep, so that gets to me. So Brenda did the Board of Ed. We've had 2 EDC meetings. We've talked a lot about local businesses, trying to make it easier for our businesses to understand the differences between the federal and the state programs. We talked in one of our first meetings about one of the things on our agenda tonight, which is the tax relief program that we're going to be discussing. They're also going to be reaching out to see if we could compile some sort of list of businesses that were open or closed and what the shutdown was doing to them. I don't think Todd is on tonight. He was going to try to join, but I don't think he was. Mike, did I miss anything? Dave?
I'm looking to see if Todd's here, but that's what we've been able to do. Sorry, I don't mean to jump into your report, but I know the Tolland patch does have a list that they're keeping track of, a spreadsheet of the businesses that are open right now. I don't think it's an all-inclusive list, but they're doing that. And that's also piggybacking on our planning director, who is reaching out proactively to landlords in town to ask them what businesses on their properties are still open. So we're keeping track of both lists.
Thank you. On another note, I've been on the twice weekly calls with the governor. One of the things that we're talking about tonight was something that I brought up multiple times, and that was pushing off the tax relief. The other thing that was really important was I had a lot of small businesses reaching out regarding being penalized for laying people off in their experience rating. Brought it up a few times on the call, and in one of the last executive orders, the governor has now said that the small businesses will not be penalized for laying people off. I am talking directly to the commissioner about working on the possibility of finding a way to get the resources for the federal and states programs in a more consumable way to help the businesses who are struggling with bank contacts and getting people to help them walk them through the 2 different, well, there's more than 2, but the 2 different platforms of the multiple different options of loans and grants and PPP and the disaster and all of the other programs. So more to come on that. I think that's all that I've got right now. So that gets me to John.
I'm liaison to WPCA. They did not meet last month, so nothing from me today.
Okay, Lou.
Liaison to the Birch Grove Building Committee, that they had a last meeting that I was able to, or that they had scheduled, was when we had a town council meeting scheduled, so I was not able to attend that. Taking a look at the records and the notes, that they have it all online. So any updates that I would have would basically be from the minutes that they had online. Apart from that, been sitting on a few different briefings, state and federal level, through my civilian job, and basically the same ones that John and Mike have been sitting in on. So any comments I would have, I would leave to them.
Kurt.
All right, I can keep this pretty short.
No
problem. I had a personal conflict from my last two meetings of the Agricultural Commission and Parks and Rec Advisory Board, so I will refer you to the minutes for them.
Okay. That gets us to new business. Up first, Chief Lytle, do you want to go ahead and go first for the COVID-19 update? First, sorry, I haven't been on the last few calls. We'll try to get back on them this week.
That's okay. Did you want to let Rob give Miller, the health director, give his? He's probably more in tune.
Do you need to?
No,
go?
I'm good. I'm good.
All right.
Yeah.
All right then. Rob Miller from the Eastern Highland Health District. I see you're on. Rob, do you want to give a quick update of where we are?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chairperson. So as of last night, the health district has 61 positive cases, 4 fatalities, and 18 hospitalizations. In the past 24 hours, there's been no new hospitalizations, no new deaths, so that's good news. While specifically for the town of Tolland, there's currently 24 positive cases that are in the system, 7 hospitalizations, and 2 new deaths. One of those hospitalizations is new as of 2 days ago. The range of cases within the town of Tolland range from 22 to 82 years of age, and it appears that most of them, or a significant percentage, is in. I don't have a specific demographic breakdown, but that's what I have at this point in time. I can tell you that for the most part, these are community acquired infections, with the exception of a number of households in which there's clearly been transmission within the family unit. As of yesterday, we had 29 case contact investigations we completed. 22 are still active within the health district. We continue to work with towns and other employers and first responders with assessing risk to personnel and staff, and reviewing tactics and strategies regarding social distancing and other disease transmission protections within the workspace. We are anticipating this receipt of cache of PPE on Thursday, straight from the Connecticut Department of Public Health to local health departments. This PPE is earmarked for private providers within our jurisdiction, urgent care centers. And so we'll be reaching out once we have that PPE in hand to distribute that to the local private providers within the health district. And certainly that includes the providers in Tolland. We did last week swear in 21 new members of the MRC. We've got about 30 members pending, still going through the vetting process.
Rob, we're getting some feedback. I'm sorry to interrupt. We're getting some feedback. I don't know if everyone else can hear that. Yeah. Oh, all right. Go ahead. Sorry.
No worries. Just also in terms of situation awareness, the University of Connecticut has started up a testing clinic for those students or who are remaining in the area. Additionally, I hear that feedback too, Michael. I'm not sure what that's from. Sounds like a child. Okay, well, I'll continue to go. Also, I know that the university has been in contact with Region 4 coordinator, Mike Caplet, about the possibility of creating some space on campus that could be dedicated to house first responders who may be either in isolation or quarantine. And certainly if that moves forward in any meaningful way, I'll be in touch with Chief Lytle about that. There are some complications with that, in that it's not a hotel, and so some support resources would be necessary if that comes to fruition. And that's my report, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Rob. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Miller? Anybody's hand up? I don't see anybody's hand up. Okay, John, do you want to go next?
Sure. Sure. So we're getting through week by week. The last member that I had that was off for a few days received his test back and received it as a negative. He is back to work. I've been meeting with the churches on a weekly basis. Must be something with the audio feedback, Mike. I don't know what it is.
I don't know. Sorry to interrupt everybody. It's just maybe is it the cable station taping? Maybe that's interfering.
Yeah, it's the first time I heard it from the last couple of meetings. It might be.
It also looks like it potentially could be Walt. So, Walt, do you mind if we put you on mute for a few seconds?
Okay.
Nope.
Nope, guess not. So it's mimicking me. It's okay. So basically, we're getting through week by week. The PPE stuff that we have, we did receive some free donations from a few residents that the article in the paper helped out with. We're supposed to be receiving Wednesday from DPH some PPE. The problem with this is we never know what we're going to receive. They don't give us a heads up. So about 2 weeks ago, I think we received some from DPH. The positive thing for Tolland is that we were between, obviously, Rob DeBeeker, our fire marshal, our building inspector, Jim Paquin, and Heidi's office, and leadership of the town manager. We were able to meet with the business that was trying to get into Gerber Garment. We were able to set him up with another business in town, a vacant space, which was pro bono for Tolland. He has got up and running. Obviously, yesterday's storm did put him back a little bit, but he was able to take a lot of the duck N95 masks that had the bad elastics, and he was able to run them through a machine that he had set up purposely, and it was able to repurpose a lot of the elastics, which puts us back up about 395 masks, which is great. So if I can go to the next step, and depending on what comes in for PPE, and start cycling our PPE for our staff, because right now we're making them wear them on 1 or 2 calls, which I don't feel comfortably. And I know that the CDC and health departments have recommendations, and I get it, and I understand for as far as protection wise, but I try to safeguard my staff a little more probably. And if we have these other masks and the other things, I'm going to try to safeguard them to the next level. Because it's just, it's nerve wracking when someone has to wait for a test for 3 or 4 days to get results back. So hopefully we can get the rest of the masks repurposed and fixed down at his business. And from there, some supplies have come in as far as sanitizers. We did reach out to town hall, and the town facilities are running low on sanitizer. So we were able to hook up, and we were able to purchase this under the emergency operations center, the fire department, through a company. And we were able to get a good deal on it. So we're going to try to get some sanitizers tomorrow. We have someone that we have to run in there, Hartford, tomorrow to get that. but at least that'll give enough sanitizers to town hall and other departments in town, and as well as us as well. So we were able to hook up with the company in Coventry, right in the industrial park, for kind of like a spray, disinfectant spray. So right now we were down to our last gallon of the special spray that we've been doing our touch points in different places in the EOC and firehouses. So we were able to secure another 4 cases. And unfortunately, a lot of this stuff is still on back order for months and months. So I'm not going to lie to you, I tried to secure everything I could for right now. So as far as PPE, it's starting to get a little scary as far as it's not a place in an occupation right now to try to have staffing coming down and trying on PPE, because you don't want people trying on stuff and then saying, hey, I'm a large or I'm an extra large or whatever. So we're trying to put 3 different sizes on the gear. The problem is I'm almost done with my gowns. So I'm going to the next level. And the problem why I say communication is that we try to run everything in Tolland to be standardized. So there's no fault or no error as far as when you get underneath an emergency. So right now we're running blue, whites, and you don't know which one's a gown and which one's a full Tyvek suit. So we're trying to get rid of the rest of the gowns, which last night we used 4. Today we used another 8. This morning we used another 5. And it's from back-to-back calls. So unfortunately, we'll try to get through the rest of the gowns and then try to be streamlined to have the consistent equipment. So there's no fault for era. But these new Tyvek suits and other things, they fit everybody differently. So it's very hard to get on a scene, and it's emotional when you get to these scenes and places and families and stuff like that. So a lot of families know as soon as you take someone out of a house, they're not going to see their loved one for a few days or something else, and it's been taxing and emotional on a lot of the staffing. So fortunate enough that we have a great crew in Tolland. Yesterday, Storm threw a real curve arrow. But I do think that it wasn't a bad thing because it was a different level of mentality and response. It was a different avenue of what we've all been facing for the last 3 weeks. So it got the crews out there to do something different. And I can't extend my thanks enough to our community residents for those that adhere to not moving the cones out of the roadways and driving under the wires, but to assist us to keep the roads blocked. And then the Eversource crews and tree crews that got out there, I think we got hit harder than most of the other communities. We're at 1,059 residents without power. We're at one time peak of the storm, about 30 roads closed. As of tonight, we have 1 road closed, and there's always one. So after I get done with this meeting, I will drive to that neighborhood and call that road back in to try to get it secured for the morning or at least before the end of the week. So we only have 1 road closed in town, which is Apple Road in Columbine. Other than that, a lot of residents came out and pitched in and helped up, and I think it removed a lot of debris too. So it was a fortunate situation. We had 1 fire caused by a generator and 1 wires on a car that the residents were able to escape and get out of it safely. But it was a scary storm. It hit us all hard. But fortunate that we didn't lose power for that long, especially in today's day and age of virtual reality or teaching and meetings and everything else. So we were able to get back up and running. We did touch base with the superintendent, who was gracious enough to call me back, and was a little nervous, just thinking I was going to open up the high school as a shelter, but just trying to plan outside the box because it's a double-edged sword for me, because I need to assure that the superintendent keeps his programs going with the food service program that he has to provide. And fortunate enough that the high school never lost power, never missed a beat, and we didn't need to use it. So everything worked out well. As far as there's been a lot of questions as far as staffing and stuff like that. Yesterday is one of those perfect examples where you can't schedule something. So if you needed someone extra down at the EOC, whether it was in a corner writing down the roads that were blocked or answering the phones, we really got thrown an arrow. When I say an arrow, we lost our communication systems at one of our main firehouses. So between 4 firehouses in town, they're considered voter repeater sites. And when phone lines and cable lines go down, then I lose a link. And then when I can't hear my guys when they're dealing with wires down or hearing the public works crews, it gets scary. And it's hard to run back and forth between outside and inside. So yesterday we were a little short staffed. We didn't have the right, and I'm not saying anything, everybody handles things differently, but it's a high level stress situation when the phones are ringing, There's 5 radios that you have to listen to. It would be great, an ideal situation if we didn't have this going on, because we would have the staffing in the EOC. Unfortunately, with the coronavirus, a lot of people don't want to be around it or near it. So it was an awkward situation, hard situation. But we managed. We wrapped up the list last night, faxed it over to the state police, faxed it over to the 911 center, and had them all, coordinated which roads were closed because of obviously dispatching concerns and, routes for emergency personnel. So it worked out well. As of right now, we have a managed CERT team that we're using, the same volunteer CERT members that have been showing up for the last week to 2 weeks, just doing normal duties. And the reason for that is to build a continuity of operations. So if someone were to get sick or somebody else couldn't show up, you had another body that could just fill that seat and knew what the procedures were at that desk or computer, just to keep the tracking. So right now, obviously, we'll find out better, hopefully get some clearance and ideas of tomorrow afternoons. We have a conference call with Dimas and the FEMA director that we'll get some guidance as far as what might be eligible under funding and what we might be able to apply for. So right now, most of all the department heads have been doing a great job writing stuff down, documentation, keeping track of records, and hopefully we'll get some clear guidance that if this goes on for another month, then we'll know what we really need to streamline as far as record keeping and staffing and stuff like that. So I can't thank enough the support of the town residents. The superintendent of schools have been gracious to reach out to, and I almost tapped him yesterday to ask him if he could help me with a GIS mapping, because I wanted to put a nice mapping out, and Walt does a beautiful job with his staffing as far as GISing and putting maps out, because he did a beautiful job with the parade. So I almost tapped and reached out to him to say, hey, I need a favor. Can I send these roads over? Can you plot them? But I just didn't have the extra minute on a phone or a body to reach out to him. So like I said, this is something that we all as a community need to go through this, because we're all going to get affected by this one way or another, whether it's a relative, a friend, a neighbor, or a loved one. And we're all getting faced by it. Like I said, last week I lost a loved one as well. So we'll get through this together. And if we can just work together, come together, and everyone has a resource or has a niche that we all put it at the same plate, the circle goes around in a circle, and we'll get through this together and probably come out a lot stronger. So God bless, and I appreciate all the support.
Thank you, John. Dr. Willett? You sound like hold on. I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh. That hurts. You sound like you're on helium right now. I think it's Walt's phone.
Yeah.
Oh, ow. You might need to call back in. You sound like you're like, oh, wait, hold on, say it again. No.
No.
That was me saying that he's going to have to repeat next year. He's going to have to come back. He's not getting through the year.
You sound like you like sucked on a dozen helium balloons right now.
Or a chipmunk.
This is the comic relief portion of the show.
Yeah.
All right, bye, Walt. That was great.
A moment of levity.
Do we want to wait till he comes back on? And
well, I can just go, and when he comes on, we can go to him. But I'll just say, John Lytell hit a lot of the things on the head right off the bat. One of the things that separates this issue from all other disaster type issues is that we can't put more people into the EOC to figure it out and to fix the situation. Generally, you throw bodies at a problem and you solve it faster. Can't do that here. So that's why we're fortunate that we've gotten to the point where we can have these electronic communications and have constant communications. As some of you may know, we've been having staff calls twice a day, morning briefings and afternoon wrap-up calls, which have been vital to understand what everybody has been working on throughout the day and throughout the week, and what we have to look forward to in the next 24 to 48 to 72 hours. I think embracing the incident command structure has been an asset to the town, and doling out responsibilities amongst the department heads, and everyone's wearing their normal hat and they're also wearing their emergency hat right now. So everyone's doing two jobs. A couple of things on the staff side, as again, this is an update and this is sort of a bit of the town manager's report as well. But on the staff side, we've split our administrative staff at town hall and some of the other buildings into two teams, where those who are working from the office in week 1 will work from home in week 2, and then they switch. So again, this adheres to social distancing or remote connecting guidelines, as some people like to call it, and just basically trying to just separate people as much as possible. Those offices that have 2 people on staff, one person works 1 week and one person works the next week, and then they alternate. So everybody has an opportunity to do that. And that extends to some of the department heads as well. And depending on, there's different situations for different departments, and it's been working out well. This is the 3rd week we've been doing that. And those people who are working from home are truly working from home. Everybody that is utilizing the program has to write a report about what they're going to be working on for the week that they're home. I read it and I sign off on it, each one by one, so I know what they're doing. And it's been productive so far, and it's also been keeping people safe and further apart. One of the other things that we're, besides staff calls internally, we're also looking externally for guidance between, obviously the health departments here, although they're a town department, but we work with them through their state organization, through the governor's calls, through other guidance that comes through, federal guidance when it comes through. So we do keep an eye on everything. And a lot of our jobs right now, we're tracking the hours that we're spending on COVID specifically, because at the end of the crisis, we may be able to put in for reimbursement for the hours that we're spending on this disaster. A few more things to consider. In terms of our budget process, we do need to revisit that. So COVID put a pause button on the town's budget process. There's a couple of decision points that the council needs to decide in the future for a future agenda. But just to put it on everyone's radar, where we left off, there's been a couple of executive orders. In fact, there's been 26 of them, A through Z. Z came through today. So we have 26 executive orders, and some of them have to do with the budget process for the municipalities. There's the opportunity where the governor has permitted waiving referendum or town meetings for those governments that have town meeting form of government. So we're going to have to make a decision if we want to have a referendum, or the council can adopt a budget without. Also, if the council wants to move forward with referendum, how long to delay it for. This actually requires a formal vote of the council to postpone the referendum to a future date. The May date, I believe, is pretty much blown out of the water at this point. And if the other big decision point is what to do with the budget process next. Should we continue to present the budget as the town manager recommended back in February and March? Or should we get guidance from council to drive us back to the drawing board? That's something that you all have to decide, and we need to hear your guidance to figure those focal points out. So that's just to put that on everyone's radar. And one of the big things that we're going to get into after this is the tax deferral program. So after we finish this update, we can talk about that, because that's a very interesting way for people to defer their tax payments for a few months to give them some extra pocket cash to deal with their family needs until such time that hopefully the COVID crisis passes, and then they can be able to pay the town. So I'll leave it at that for now. A lot of you know what we've been working on. We've been doing press releases. They've been great, and staff's doing a great job. Volunteers are doing a great job. I've been on this job for 7 months now, and it hasn't been an easy 7 months, but we are getting through it. So I'll leave it at that. I know we were up to Walt, I believe, next.
All right. Is my Alvin and the Chipmunks filter off now?
You sound great.
All right.
There you are. You're back.
All right. Things are going well thanks to everybody in the town who helped create a situation where we could actually have school. We had that rough weather, and being able to have John Lytle and DPW and everybody react the way they did to get the road set up and the power lines so that people had power. It allowed us to have school, so that was good, because you can't have virtual school without power, obviously. So that went well. We are seeing the effects now of COVID affecting our staff and people within their families. So we are struggling a little bit in that, we have people now that will need to be out, obviously for caregiving or other situations with respect to it. So we are trying to fill personnel holes now that are absolutely necessary, obviously, but these things are coming up, and we're pivoting and doing what we need to do to cover that. The meal program is going strong and expanding. It has been expanded now to any children within the town that are 18 and younger, regardless of affiliation with the district. And we did modify, as you heard before with Ms. Felucci's report, the April break and so on, to get kids working this week and make up some of the days we lost. I also think it provided crucial structure for the kids during a time when there's not a lot of other outside contacts and opportunities. So I think that that's working out quite well. The staff is responding well to that and working really hard. And the parents and guardians are also really making some amazing efforts this week. So I'm very happy about that. And the parade went wonderfully. And so it's a good report, a good week, as good as we can get in a situation like this.
Thank you. I agree. I think it was, I don't have any kids in school. Well, I did their college, but not in the school system like you do. I think it was a good decision to come back and utilize the time to keep everything kind of moving forward from a learning perspective for April. I don't know what you did, but I think every now and then we should put you on the helium thing. It was a good little comic relief.
I have all kinds of filters.
Do you? You're gonna have to share those, Walt. You're gonna have to share those. Yeah. Make this all a little bit more bearable right now. Anybody have any questions for Dr. Willett or Mike or anybody else that had information provided here? Oh, Brenda has her hand up.
Sure. I have a few questions. Chief, can you provide us with an idea of like how many phone calls you're getting for that emergency line you set up for residents to call? And maybe if you gave us a little bit more information about what the volunteers are required to do and what safety measures you put in to place for them, we might get a few more people willing to come forward for you that may be watching this or listening.
So real quick, when we first started, we received anywhere between 10 to 15 calls a day. Now that we have a solid volunteer list, anywhere between 5 calls or so a day. Most of the stuff that we've put up on the websites have directed people to put more of their thorough questions into CDC or 211. If it was something to deal with mental health or looking for guidance wise. So we're not getting too many questions or phone calls there. The problem is there are other phones that might ring either at my desk that I need to transfer out to someone else, or there's a lot of phone, everything's obviously virtual reality and phone conferences. So a perfect example is tomorrow we have back-to-back phone conferences where 3 more just got dumped into it because there's another issue that's going to be occurring in the state of Connecticut in a neighboring town that's going to be involving some different various agencies from state level that we have to be on a conference call tomorrow. So, that was one conference call that normally Rob would end up handling from the Department of Public Health, and something that, Rob Miller participates in, but it's nice to have a staff member at least be online in that and take notes and get the information. So you hear it firsthand. I just don't have the staff down there to do that, or it's either Kelly or Betsy. Last week we were fortunate to have a volunteer down there to at least listen and take the right notes. But it's something that we're trying to, like I said, build a community where we have 2 or 3 people deep. So, if there was 1 or 2 volunteers, at least they could watch and safeguard themselves and watch what notes have to be taken, how to shorthand it, to put it in a format to send out to everybody. What we did for safeguards is, under the leadership of the town manager, he granted me permission to buy some dividers, and the dividers that we've ended up placing in obviously block my area and a few of the other desks. So you basically have almost another separate office area. So it's a divider, and it kind of safeguards the noise or the phone calls, or, it gives a barrier, which gives another, protection level where you're way beyond the 6 feet, but you also have a built-in almost wall-wise. So it kind of makes a lot. I saw a different change in some of the volunteers that came in this last week going, wow, these are nice. And they felt more comfortable. They saw it. So and we encourage anybody coming down, if they wanted to wear a mask, being down there. We always encourage everybody. As soon as you walk in my door, you have to sign a slip that you're signing in. You have to monitor that says you took your temperature before you came in. You have to take your temperature before you come into the building. And then we, obviously I go in, I try to go first thing in the morning before any staff gets there. And I literally sanitize the place. And then obviously when we have volunteers changing positions, we sanitize that whole station and move into another station. So it's been done nicely, been handled nicely, but managing the food shelter, managing the drop-offs, especially with the weather we've been having, has been really tricky for us because people are still dropping off donations for the food pantry. So going out and understanding how the food pantry works and how to separate it, because we're trying to take the guard off of Bev and Human Services, because Fran and Becky are down at the senior center. So if we can take some of the work out and then separate the foods and the stuff that's dropped off, it's one less extra step another human has to take. And then when we drop the trailer off, it's all just compiled into the room. Documenting donations that come in, we keep a separate inventory of any documentation of donations that were given. We sometimes have to unfortunately research products. If something that comes up, we send somebody on the internet and say, hey, start researching this. Sometimes we have to order PPE. Most of the liaison stuff is handled by Scott Lappin, but when you get into a medical thing, you don't want to delegate a situation where you don't have the person near you to say, hey, this is what you're looking for. So at least someone's down there that has medical terminology of knowing what to look for PPE. Coordinating the exposure paperwork has probably been the hardest. And nothing against the state of Connecticut, but out of 169 towns, I'm a little disgusted that all the towns in Connecticut hasn't formed a unity to create one page, and especially with KERMA and documentations, that we're all doing the same thing. To fill out these exposure forms is just is nonsense. It's 4 or 5 different pages, going through it, inventorying it, credentialing it, then researching back. So there's a lot of times the hospital's calling me to obviously give me information. I have to have somebody sit at the firehouse report and find out who was on a call, and then do a printout, print out the firehouse report, document that, staple that. Creating signage, we change signage all the time. As far as if we move locations or anything else. Yesterday was a very unique situation of trying to create a lot of different signage for roads or other aspects, and simple press releases. And then obviously, people that are in the business field, trying to get them to assign tasks to some of the CERT personnel or people that haven't worked in an environment like that. So there's always that. Sorting through the non-perishables, like I said. There's been a few drivers that we've needed to drop off stuff. I've got to find 2 volunteers, one to go to Windsor tomorrow and maybe one to go to East Haven tomorrow. If I don't find somebody, I have to send either Kelly or Rob. Rob unfortunately set 2.5 hours last week 2 weeks before in Windsor to pick up our PPE cache. So that's a body that I would have kept in town for an emergency. Updating the spreadsheets, we're documenting all the volunteer hours. If this community, from my office to Walt's office to the town's office to anybody else in the community, church groups, anybody else that's helping out, and we're in an EOC environment, the more volunteer hours that you document and create, it helps you out in the long run, because you get points and you get credits for those type of hours. So we encourage anybody that's doing anything from a school, community standpoint, a church point, that we're all in this together. And whether the churches, right now, I would fight to say that the churches are supporting the food bank and supporting Human Services, because they took approximately 995 to 1,500 people off of our list that we didn't have to help maintain. I unfortunately didn't have a volunteer today. I left with the Explorer, went to a business in town to pick up some items that they wanted to donate to the Human Services. And what people have to realize is right now, if a business gets a delivery, a lot of deliveries cannot be sent back because of obviously the coronavirus. So they write it off or they throw it in a dumpster. I will not see in this community food or stuff thrown in a dumpster. So whether I get into the food bank's hands or I get it into the church groups and let them participate in the food share program, it's getting to somebody. And a lot of it was sometimes cleaning materials, meaning dishwashing liquid, soap, and everything else wise. It just had cracked lids and different things. I was able to grab 3 or 4 or 5 cases of that those people that are going to the food bank in a week or two that don't have any money, at least they have dishwashing soap or other things where we could get that into somebody's hands. So I did 2 loads today. So I was a little stressed out. Thank God we have a great town manager, and I'll need some of those filters that Walt has, because the town manager has dealt with a lot of my filterization in the last week to 2 weeks. But answering phones, there's various other minor things that come up, but no day is the same. And that's one thing I could say about the emergency services, that no day is the same. It's even similar to coming back from a multiple calls yesterday and just having someone run a case of water up to the fire scene or run a case of water to somebody else, is a really huge aspect, because when you get a medical call and these guys are putting PPE on, they don't. The last thing I want to hear me call on the radio and say, "Hey, can you go grab the service truck and go up here and pick up some boxes at Big Y for me?" They want to tell me kind of where to go lately. So like I said, it's no day's the same. Every day is different. But we're managing right now. We're using a couple of volunteers, I think, tomorrow to take a couple road trips to us. One person I had to find to go get that sanitizer tomorrow. And then we don't have to send one of the public works guys out, or one of the fire guys out that keeps a staff member in town. So there's numerous jobs like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that was great. Thank you. That was it for right now that I had for questions. Thank you very much.
All right, that gets us to 8.2, consideration of a resolution to approve a tax deferment program pursuant to Governor Lamont's Executive Order 2020-7S.
Thank you. Mike Rosen, Town Manager speaking. I think I'm going to be tag teaming this with Lisa Hancock, our Finance Director, who's on the line. Basically, this is a mandatory agenda item that we had to have and actually make a decision on by April 25th. So under Executive Order 7S as in Sam, all municipalities in Connecticut have to make a decision whether they're going to go with a tax deferment program or a low interest rate program, or both. And so every municipality has to make a decision within the next week or so on that. So we bring this forward to you tonight for your consideration. As you'll see in the materials in your packets tonight, pages 4, 5, 6, and so on, detail out the 2 programs and specifically why the tax deferment program is the preferred option. We can talk a little bit about the specifics of both, but I think it's fair to say, to boil it down, what the deferment program will do will be to delay property tax collection for 3 months, so that the July 1st tax bills, which are normally collected in the month of July, are going to be delayed, postponed until the month of September, to be due by October 1st. And sorry, I'm getting some feedback here. I'm hearing my voice.
A lot of feedback.
And the other piece to it too is that it's not a forgiveness program; it's a deferral program. So, like I said earlier during the COVID update, the idea here is to give folks residential, commercial, water, sewer, a 90-day break to pay their taxes, so that they can focus on spending their money basically on needs like food and shelter and things like that. I received a suggestion to mute everybody for a moment to see if that kills the feedback. I'm going to give that a try. Mute all. Okay. Let's see if that fixed anything. Otherwise, it's me. Anyway, that's pretty much why I just wanted to talk about that for a few minutes, the deferral program. In contrast, there's also the low interest rate program, which also it's a different program, but instead of an 18% interest rate for 90 days, all taxpayers would be paying a 3% interest rate. So it's a little bit different, but anyway, I'm going to unmute now so that Lisa can chime in with any specifics she wants to say.
Good evening, everybody. I think what I'd like to do is, I'm not sure how much you've actually looked over all the documentation that was sent to you. I know you're trying to move the meeting along. Would you prefer to just ask some questions, or do you want me to kind of give you some of what my opinions of what I recommended here?
Lisa, I'd like to understand I'd like to understand what you learned going through this and what your opinions are. And of course, even sick, I'm going to have a couple of questions.
That's fine.
I like your
Okay.
background, by the way.
Thank you. Regarding the two programs, as Mike mentioned, one program is a deferment program, which allows any bill that occurs between March 10th and July 1st to be deferred for 90 days without interest being charged to it. If after the 90 days, the taxpayer or water bill, sewer bill, whatever the case may be, is not paid, then it will revert back to the normal late interest rate. What I am recommending here is to you do the deferment program, but only allow it for the COVID-19 eligible people who truly need some sort of allowance to help offset the cost of their taxes and their cash flow. The other program is the interest rate program, which allows it's very cumbersome and confusing, so bear with me. It allows the interest rate on taxes due to be reduced to 3% for the 3-month period, but then it would have to revert back to the 18%. And the system that we have currently couldn't even accommodate for that as we speak. It would be a nightmare to implement because there are so many different time periods. It's not just one tax bill where you could say, okay, this tax bill here or this particular bill here, we'll put it out for 3 months, but it's going back to taxes that may be 8 years old, delinquent, to go back and pick 3 months here. And then you have to go back if they don't pay it to put it backwards. It's quite cumbersome. And from what I understand from the majority of the towns in the state are opting not to go with that particular method. One town actually said I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. And I don't feel it would give the most benefit to the people who need it out there. I think with the people who are COVID eligible, those are the ones who are going to need to try to at least have a few months to pay their taxes without being hit with an 18% rate. And it would be the easiest way to implement. I did talk about the interest rate one, the low interest rate one, where a majority of our taxes collected in the town are about 99% collection. So only 1% of the population that pays taxes would even benefit from that, depending on how, how they, if they were to enroll in the program. I have concerns there with that particular program would be open to all the public and not just COVID eligible people. So beyond it being an the administrative process being very cumbersome and requiring a cost to change our software, I just don't think it would benefit the people who really need it. The deferment program, sorry, text came up. What that allows for is if there are people who pay their taxes through as part of their mortgage process, those taxes that have been paid, whether a person is COVID eligible or not, still will be required under the state statute or this executive order to have to, the mortgage companies would have to pay those taxes. So in my opinion, when I look at what we collected last year based on those mortgage companies, that would give us some cash flow to be able to get through to October 1st, to run the town, to pay our payrolls, to as long as we watch our other revenues and expenditures closely, it would give us the ability to give those taxpayers who need the advantage, but also to get our cash flow in the way we need it. The executive order also allows municipalities to extend this deferment to all taxpayers of the town, whether they're eligible or not. However, I'm not recommending that just because of our cash flow needs. I would, sorry, I'm going through some personal things, so I'm a little off tonight, so I apologize.
Don't apologize. I'm with you.
So with the deferment program, I'm recommending only for the COVID eligible in order for us to be able to keep town operations moving and be able to have the cash flow that we need to pay our bills. There's just such a realm of uncertainty right now. We really don't know what the revenue impact is going to be until we really find out how many people will fall under the eligibility process. In your packet, you will see a copy of the form that has been created by the state that outlines who would be eligible and who would not be, including businesses, landlords. There's different rules for each one of those groups. So it provides some relief for everybody that would need it. Trying to see what else I have here. I gave you a little bit of background of where our cash flow was last year and where I think we would be. So I think, we would be cutting it close depending on what other revenues we get. But I feel it's an option that would work for us. Do you have any questions?
Looks like Lou has his hand up.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you, Kim. Lisa, just a quick question here. You pretty much answered the question I had originally as far as how we would determine who would be eligible, but I scrolled down further in the application process, and it shows that that there is an application that the state has put out. So you're saying that we would have to have the people that are requesting the deferral fill out the application, then we'd go through a review process, determine whether or not it's something that would meet the criteria, and then grant it. Is that what you're proposing?
Yes, and under that application, with the exception of the businesses and things like that, the application is pretty much an affidavit that these people are signing. So their private medical information would not be shared with us, but they would be signing a legal affidavit that would be enforceable under the law regarding perjury and everything else. So it's not like the staff would have to be looking at people's medical records to determine if they're eligible or not. It would just be based on what they have completed on the form and their affidavit to being in that situation, their certification.
Okay, thank you.
And if I can add too, it's not just the medical history, but it's also whether it's their income,
Right.
the income that they produce.
Right. It's
Yeah.
income based, not just I had like,
yes, I
have COVID. Does that mean I automatically get a text saying, no, I have to show that my income is impacted?
Right.
Right. And you need to prove your residency as well, that you're a resident of the town.
Okay.
Right.
We have a couple of questions actually from a few counselors. The order is Brenda, Steve, and John.
Okay, Brenda Flusy. I had a question on the form. For the business nonprofit, it does say, a revenue is expected to decrease at least 30% through June time period. But for the resident, it just says a reduction in income of at least 20% due to COVID-19, and it has some check boxes there. Doesn't say for that 20%. Is that 20% for their yearly income? Is it for a certain
You're breaking up. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you broke up.
Sure. for the residents, is the 20% reduction in income for a specific time period? Because the business was for a 3-month time period. The residents, are we looking at, for that 3-month time period, are we looking at anticipated loss in revenue for the entire year? You know, what does that make up?
You know, that's a good question. I would have to refer back to the guidance that they also included. I thought it was for the period of time starting from March 10th
March to
through
July, right?
to July 1st is what my understanding was, but I can double check that and get back to you, but that was my
Yeah.
understanding.
Yeah.
That's how I read it, Lisa. I read it basically
Yeah.
from the March 10th to the July 1st date.
July
You had
1st.
shown that you had a loss of 20% of your income in that time period.
Right, it does, because I agree, I've seen that referred to in every business place. It seems like they forgot to put that June time period on for the check boxes for the residents.
Okay. John?
We can get it clarified.
Thanks, Tammy. Lisa, I just want to make sure that I understand this correctly. I believe you said that there's a 3-month deferral of taxes that people, if they choose to, they can defer their taxes for 3 months. And then I think you said if it's not paid, it will revert back to, and that's interest free, but if it's not paid, it will revert back to accruing interest. What's the time frame of those 3 months of deferral that those taxes need to be repaid?
Okay, so if it were for the only property taxes that will be coming on the books are the ones as of July 1st. So as far as that's concerned, so that bill would be delayed until October 1st. If a person came in and paid October 2nd, they would be delinquent and would have to pay the entire interest rate for being late. If they pay by October 1st, they have 0% interest.
I see. Thank you.
So that was one of my questions too. If they don't pay in the 90 days, do the late fees revert back? So if it becomes October 1st, excuse me, and they don't pay by November 1st, they get charged.
No, they have to pay by October 1st.
They have to pay by October 1st. Okay, so if they don't pay by October 1st, on October 2nd, does it then go back and charge interest for the last 3 months?
Right.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't 100% sure. And then, let's see, hold on. I had a couple other questions. If people, like say somebody wanted to apply for this and say, I want till October 1st to pay, is there a way for them to set up a payment plan to make payments over the 3 months so they don't have to pay it all at once if they have
Absolutely. That would certainly be. And we have certain people now who have hardships, and as long as they're working with our tax office, we review each case. We, set certain boundaries. You don't want someone coming in and paying $5 a week and they have a $20,000 tax bill. That's not going to cut it. But certainly we do take arrangements like that.
I'm thinking like the landlords and the small businesses, especially who are going to be just starting to get their revenue back. If they can make payments as they go for 3 months, then that might be beneficial. What did I mean by that? What is the financial impact of delay in the collections? Well, you already provided us like a little good breakdown of the financial aspect of it. But can you tell me again quickly, I know I have this somewhere, but what percentage is typically paid by escrow? And that's going to enable us to have at least the first 3 months of payroll and basic expenses, right?
Yes. I'm going back to my notes here. It's about 50%. Let me just look at my notes here. I'm on the wrong page. But it's not 50% of the, we have 2 installments. We have the July 1st installment of January. So in July of this year, I think we billed out about 19 million And I think we collected around 9. I'm trying to find my numbers that I had here where I was talking about it. I had it in my cover memo. Here we go. Sorry. Okay. Yes. In July, we billed out about 19.9 million. And of that amount, about 10.1 million was for mortgage escrow. So that's the funds that the executive order would allow us to collect,
Right.
And have into our bank account in order to at least get us through for the payrolls, the bills, and the major payrolls are the Board of Education payroll as well as the town. So that alone through that period would be close to $6 million.
Okay. And then the last thing that I think I had is, I don't know if it's possible, if there's any way, well, first of all, once we vote on this, making sure we get this out to the public, but more importantly, is there a way for us to preemptively kind of get like send out something. I'm sorry, excuse me.
Right.
Can we send out something to try to get an idea of how many people we think may apply? Like, if you think you are going to apply to this, can you let us kind of know ahead of time so we can try to gauge that to see if our numbers are in line with what we think? Or obviously there might be people who
I think it would, yeah. Certainly there needs to be a communication device, whether it's through eBlast on our website, maybe through the patch, whatever way we can communicate this to all the citizens. I think people getting back to us, it's like doing a survey. They may or may not get back to you and say, hey, yeah, I'm considering doing this. I mean, you could put the question out there. You could do a survey monkey to see how many people would say yes or no, I qualify, and yes, I would take advantage. But even if you found out how many people, you really wouldn't know the dollar value of that unless you knew what specific property. It would be extremely involved. However, if we start getting the applications out there and they start coming in, at least we'll get a better feel for how many people would be applying and what the impact, the financial impact would be.
I know I had asked, and I believe prior to last week, we'd had over 50 or plus people call in about having issues, questions about whether there was anything they can do about their taxes because of this, which I think is a low number. So maybe, I don't know if this would count, oh God, I can't talk, Mike, I don't know if this would count as emergency expense or not, but could we do a mailing out to all of the property, all of the main property owners to say this is going to be a program, it's going to be available to everybody. We can still do social media, email, everything else, but actually do a mailing. Because I think between this, there's going to be other key information that we're going to want to get out to people, if the whole vote thing and that, but mainly if we can get something out to them, maybe we can get something back from them saying that they'd be interested in this program, and would that qualify as an expense as under the emergency order because it's COVID related?
I mean, obviously on the fly, I'm not sure the answer to that. I mean, obviously I talked to Lisa about doing a mailing, and how effective that would be, or if it's going to end up just on the scrap pile for people. But, it's an idea. We can push the information out as much as possible. I feel like two people that are going to be eligible for this will probably hear about it in one way or another. But we could talk about doing a mailing. I'm just trying to think if it would be an eligible expense. It might be. Lisa, we could talk offline about the cost of it and if it could be charged through the emergency.
I really don't know. If it would.
Yeah.
John may have some input too.
Looks like Steve and Lou have their hands up. I might have something else. I can't remember right now. But actually, no, just Lou has his hand up now.
I just lowered my hand so I didn't have it raised anymore. So I had a couple of questions. The first was in terms of the utilities. I assume that for the most part is just residents and businesses that are served by the Water Commission.
Water Commission and sewer.
Okay.
The water. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go. You first.
The water, actually, Connecticut Water and the Water Commission have already, because they they manage our water billing. So they kind of already fall under this through the process that they're doing. And they're not shutting off water meters and for non-payment and things like that currently.
Executive order also. They can't.
Right.
Yep.
So, and the only other thing is the sewer operations. We do have some bills. People have, the bills went out middle of March and beginning of April for the sewers, and people have been paying those. So I guess it'll be whoever's left, if this is approved, whoever's left on that list, then we reach out to them and figure out if they're eligible and they would be able to, do it interest-free.
This might be a good use for the Everbridge reverse 911 system as well. We could put something out on there, that's relatively low cost to do that. I'm not sure if there's any cost besides staff time to do that. Also, I know we have on the line a representative from the press and media. So should the council decide to actually go forward with this, maybe the Journal Inquirer can put the word out for us too.
Okay, Lou?
Thank you, Tammy. Yeah, I think that based upon what Lisa was saying and sort of in conjunction with the question that you were asking about the mailing and getting an idea, I think that the best course of action is just going on the assumption, as Lisa put forward, that we're looking at probably 50% people that 50% could possibly claim it. That way, if we have more income, that's great. But if it's something that we have, people that are going to be claiming it, at least that we will have it built in and we'll already know that. And Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, but what you were saying before is about 50% of the people pay their taxes through their mortgages. So that's the revenue income that we're getting. So I think
that's a historical.
Yeah. So I think that the best course of action is just go on the assumption that that's the number. 50% of the people could or may possibly claim it, and then go forward on that if we're going to go forward with the vote on it.
I think that's the worst case scenario from the revenue generation perspective. Does anybody else have any other questions? Well, I guess
Steve has his hand up.
Steve?
I was going to say, if there were no other questions, I'd entertain a motion to approve the deferment plan.
This is Brenda Felucci, I second.
Okay, any discussion? I actually have a discussion point on this. Do we want to go ahead and just approve this tonight, or do we want to think about it and meet next week, which would give us time before the 25th deadline? Is there anything else you think anybody else is going to have for questions, or that we might need to entertain before making a move on this?
This is Brenda Felucci. I have nothing else. I'm ready to vote tonight.
Okay, John, I'm just going to go through the list here. John, how do you feel? Are we good for a vote tonight, or do you want to?
I'm ready to vote.
Somebody does not need.
Come here, Sean. What?
Oh,
When I was going like this.
Right, and it's not nice, is it?
Kate Howard Bender got unmuted somehow.
What she said?
Oh, now she's muted again. Okay. All right. Well, since nobody else had anything to say, then I guess we will go forward. Excuse me. That wasn't good. With a vote. Brenda.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Kurt.
Aye.
Lou.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Okay, and I am a yes, but I want to confirm what the motion that was put in place. Was it to accept the deferment, or you didn't say specifically, did you?
It was to approve the tax deferment program.
The deferment, okay. All right.
And can I just point of order? It was deferment program for only those eligible.
Only those eligible.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, only those that are impacted. But I just wanted to make sure we had the wording on that right, because we did not vote on the interest rate piece, just the deferment for those who are affected directly financially by COVID.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, we're all in agreement with that.
Excuse me, one quick question.
Yes, Lisa.
On the attachment then for the resolution, on the bottom, is it only item 1 or is it both items 1 and 2?
Hold on 1 second and I will look at that.
Me too.
90 days, real property, real profit. It's, yes, it's both, because that says the second one there is those document that they are providing relief to those significantly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The town shall follow guidance as issued by the Secretary of the Office of Policy and Management on which businesses and residents shall be considered eligible. There's a lot about this program that I think we're going to have to be very precise in when we communicate it. For instance, the stuff about the landlords and what makes them eligible, and also the businesses. So when we think about that communication, Mike, it's going to have to be pretty detailed.
Yep, I would recommend that we basically lift the language from the resolution itself, and then when we put the word out, we'll try to make sure it's more user friendly so people understand. The OPM document has some good starter language that we can try to soften a little bit so that people understand it.
Let's just make sure it's consumable and it's not the legalese that most ordinance stuff is. As simple as possible so anybody can understand it, and that there's easily contactable people to reach out to.
So we will since the council has voted tonight, we will let OPM know that we are on board with the deferment program, and then we'll work on getting the word out. We have a little bit of lead time now since the July bills are going out, or they'll still be going out at the same time, but people don't have to actually pay them until the month of September.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gets us to 8.3.
Just want to make a point. It's the eligible, the people that are eligible for the deferment. Just want to make that clear on the record.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. 8.3, consideration of a resolution approving a transfer of $85,113 from the Board of Ed's audited unexpended balance of June 30th, 2019 to the Education Reserve Fund.
Okay, Mike Rosen, Town Manager speaking. I'm going to just do a little bit of reading here off of the agenda items. So back in January 22nd, the Board of Ed approved a motion to request the Town Council consider and approve a request to transfer $85,113 from the Board of Ed's audited fiscal year 18-19 balance to the Education Reserve Fund pursuant to the provisions of Ordinance Number 86, Chapter 8. That ordinance is in your packet as well. This request could not be presented to Town Council until after March 31st, pursuant to the ordinance. So if this transfer is approved, the balance in the fund after this transfer will be $506,635. And just as a point, a public hearing is not required because this falls under the ordinance and charter allowance to transfer unexpended funds and is not considered a supplemental appropriation beyond what was originally budgeted. So, there's information in the packet about the Education Reserve Fund. Lisa, was there anything specifically you just want to touch on in this, or
no?
we do it every year,
just
right?
in accordance with the ordinance that we've always done each year.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
all I have for primer.
Thank you, Mike. Does anybody have any questions on this? For anybody new to the council, this is a yearly event. If there is money left from the Board of Ed budget, it automatically at the end of the year defaults to the general fund. And then after the third quarter of the year, first quarter of the calendar year, if at that point the Board of Ed can request that money that is left, up to 1% of their total budget be transferred back to the Board of Ed Education Reserve Fund, which can be used for specific things that are mentioned in that ordinance that you see there. So this is in effect the $85,000 that was remaining at the end of last fiscal year, which ended June 30th, 2019? Yes. Sorry. Yes. Okay. Everything's, yep, we're good. So does anybody have any questions on that? All right, then. Steve, do your due.
All right, so I would entertain a motion to approve the approve the resolution approving the transfer of $85,113 from the BOE audited unexpended balance as of June 30th, 2019 to the Education Reserve Fund.
This
I'll
is Brenda.
second.
Okay.
Lou got
Yeah.
that one. All right. Any discussion? All right. And Brenda,
Yes.
Lou,
Aye, yes.
Kurt,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
I'm an aye. That motion passes. Thank you. That gets us to 8.4. Consideration of a resolution making an additional appropriation of $16,132.29 from Materials Innovation and Recycling Authority. The final distribution of the concluded Mid-Connecticut project to the Capital Refuse Reserve account. I'm not reading that. And the setting of a public hearing thereon for April 28th, 2020.
Yes, and Mike Rosen, town manager speaking, and just Walt, I got your message. Yeah, you can. If you want to bow out, feel free. So thank you for being here tonight. So this agenda item, it's something that tonight's action is to set a public hearing for our next regular meeting. And I had asked a little bit about that. I wasn't sure why, in order to accept money, we needed to set a public hearing, but it's because we've already reached the threshold that we would have to actually talk about. Maybe Lisa can help explain it more, but we've already reached our threshold, so we do have to do a public hearing for this. So what this specifically is, it's called MIRA, which is the Materials Innovation and Recycling Authority, and they've been giving us some distributions that are shared amongst their members, and we've gotten a couple of checks already. This is because the Mid-Connecticut project has ceased their operations back in 2012, and the total MIRA distribution was $28,302. And this is the final distribution of funds for this program. This money is added to the Refuse Reserve account in the Capital Projects Fund, and what that is used for is to replace waste and recycling barrels, and has been used to offset the cost of tonnage for the one free bulky waste pickup that we've been doing still, and we've also recommended as part of next year's budget, at least as of the previously manager's approved budget. So this revenue, this 16,000 and change, will help offset those costs. So the funds that would be appropriated that we're receiving, the 16,000, it's based on a proportional system for the different towns that are affected by this program. We would move it to the account that's listed on the agenda item, but for tonight we can't do that. All we can do tonight is set a public hearing next regular meeting.
Okay, so tonight we're just voting to set a public hearing, not on actually moving the dollars to that capital reserve account.
And if there's any questions that we can settle tonight about what this is, I know on the line, not only Lisa, but I know Mike Wilkinson, Director of Administrative Services, is on the line tonight as well. So while you have us here, if you have any questions, feel free to ask about the program.
Hi, Mike. Anybody have any questions for Mike or Lisa on this? Nope. Okay. Then Steve.
I entertain a motion to set the public hearing on April 28th, 2020 at 7 p.m. via Zoom meeting in regards to item 8.4.
This is Brenda Felucci, I second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, Brenda.
Aye.
Kurt.
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Lou.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
And I'm an aye, so that motion passes unanimously, Lisa.
Thank you. Oh,
Thank you, guys. Both Lisas, there you go.
I'm going to mute.
No old business tonight. Report of the town manager. Technically, this is the first meeting of the month, isn't it?
Yes, and I'm happy to say that we do have a full manager's report, which was part of your packet. It's also posted on the town website. I've already covered a lot of what I said earlier about sort of where the town's at with COVID, and what we've been up to in terms of our measures to respond to COVID on a evolving basis. If you think about a month ago when we were still basically in full operation with full staff and everything open, and then bit by bit, we've chipped away and had to close things to respond to COVID. And as the numbers evolved and as the number of the guidance evolved about how many people you can have safely in a room together, we had to quickly abandon in-person stuff and move all to virtual. So, we've come a long way in 1 month. The manager's report goes into details about, sort of the timeline and what we've done and what's been closed and what we're considering. I think at this point, we've kind of plateaued with closures and things. There's really not much else that we can do, but we're still, any guidance we're getting, we're still responding to. Even programs that aren't specifically town related, like the Lake Schenipsit Recreation Program. We've been keeping an eye on that, which that's a Connecticut water program. And we've provided guidance and our town input into that program to say, we respect the fact that they have social distancing measures and needs for that program, but also there needs to be oversight from Connecticut Water on it to make sure that the program is successful and nobody gets sick or just takes advantage of the situation because there are fewer monitors around. So other than that, I just also wanted to talk briefly about the census because Brenda mentioned it, and I wanted to just put a couple other little fine points on it. So as she said, we are still leading the state. We're very high up there, actually nationwide, but it's hard to compare apples to oranges because we're a small town and we're up against some big cities and things across the nation. But 66.4 or now it's 60.6% is pretty darn good, and that's only in a few weeks. I believe Tolland residents received the first census notification March 18th, so we're talking less than a month that 66% of those on the mailing list have already responded. So I spoke with our representative from the Census Bureau on the phone today and let her know that we're going to be talking tonight. So a couple of things that she would like to share is that in the future, there's the federal government is still discussing whether or not census takers are going to be able to go door to door because of COVID-19. They're in talks right now about postponing the in-person visits because of transmission of the virus. So the best thing everybody can do now, if you're listening at home, is do the census. If you're home and you're looking for something to do and you got 10 minutes to kill, fill out the census. That avoids having to have a census taker come to your door. They might be postponed, but they're still going to come because it's still a very important program, and it's part of the program to get accurate numbers to send a physical census taker to those homes that haven't responded by a certain time point. That time point was the summer, but that's probably going to be extended. So, like I said, just do your census now. I did it in like 8 minutes. So, let's see. If you're home, why not fill out the census? And then if you're the next, like Brenda said, if the next mailer that everyone's going to be receiving, if you haven't filled out your census, is the actual questionnaire. And even though they're sending the actual questionnaire by mail, they still would love for you to actually send it back via online so that you're not putting your germs onto paper and sending it back in the mail. So again, do it online if you can, or do it by phone. Phone's another good option for people that want to take some time and call their answers in. The last thing to mention is I've talked about it a few times now, but there's a friendly wager between the town of Tolland and the town of Coventry, between the town managers in those towns. I actually talked to John Elsesser the other day, the town manager of Coventry, and we've actually decided to open up the bet a little bit. So what originally was going to be a pizza party for, well, back when people wanted to, in party mode, pizza party for, staff in town, we're actually talking about doing a pizza party now for the first responders in town. So whichever town gets the highest completion percentage will win a delivery.
Pizza!
Yeah. So we will, the winning town will receive a delivery of pizza for their first responders from the other town. So as we've said on social media, let's feed our people. So, but we're doing very well. We're way ahead, and Coventry is, they're going to catch up though, because if we start slowing down, they're going to catch up to us. So that's the only thing I wanted to mention. Just try to end on some good news here.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Mike on the manager's report? Mike, I did I did read it briefly, and I haven't had the time to like send you any questions or anything, but I will.
Okay.
Okay, I don't see anybody else have any questions, so that gets us to 11, adoption of minutes.
There's no other discussion, Madam Chair. I entertain a motion to adopt the March 31st, 2020 remote special meeting minutes as outlined in 11.1.
This is Brenda Felucci, second.
Any discussion? Brenda,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Lou,
Aye.
Kurt,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Lisa, that passes unanimously. Correspondence to council.
Yes. Where's my list? Okay. This is Brenda Felucci. The correspondence we received a letter from the chair of the EDC in approval of the tax payment, program, which we had passed. We received an email from a resident requesting a delay in the tax payments, and that email was received prior to the governor's directive. We received an email from the Deputy Commissioner of the Connecticut Department of Labor explaining some hurdles that they are experiencing with technology and reporting for unemployment numbers. And we received an email from a resident who had concern for the safety and health of our town staff and asked for clear communications about how we are protecting our town staff. And that was all the correspondence I had since our last meeting.
I actually received something that was addressed to you all, so I just wanted to bring it up tonight, but it wasn't formally emailed to everybody. I had received a communication from the Conservation Commission that might require a future agenda item for the town council. They'd like to recommend, and they're going to send a formal letter to town council that the new Walnut Senior Park be conveyed authority to the Conservation Commission. And in the past, any sort of land transfer like that from one agency to another would require a formal agenda item. So it's something to put in the bucket maybe for petitions to talk about future agenda items after perhaps coronavirus passes, or maybe even beforehand if that's what you choose to do.
Thank you. Can you just remind me of that, and I'll try to figure out where. Chairperson's report. I don't have a big formal report tonight. I didn't have time to prepare anything other than to just say it's been a hell of a month. I think everybody's doing a lot of thinking on their feet. I've seen a lot of people reaching in to help out, to actively participate, to try to make things better for our residents in town. Sit, brainstorm, talk to people, come up with suggestions and ideas. Everybody's being very innovative, reaching across and making sure everybody is looking out for somebody who somebody else may not have thought of. And I couldn't be prouder of all of our staff, the Board of Ed staff, across the board. We've all kind of come together with this, and it's a sight to see. And like I said, I didn't really have anything specific prepared right now, maybe the next meeting, but just wanted to say thank you to everybody. And that gets us to 14, communications and petitions from council persons. Does anybody have anything in specific they want to petition or ask about tonight?
Brenda has her hand up.
Yes. So this is Brenda Felucci. I would like to ask Mike for his official request to delay the referendum. It says in our town charter that, you are eligible to request to make an official request for us to delay it. This way people aren't looking for the second Tuesday for anybody who may not be getting this kind of electric, correspondence, so that they're not showing up for a polling place on the second Tuesday in May.
Yeah, we actually have that on our next agenda to talk about that, because Mike does have to make a formal request.
Right.
So,
well-
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Right. I'm not looking for a date to be set. I'm just saying tonight I think we can go ahead and just say it's officially delayed and the dates to be determined. And then we'll say, what day we have it on our agenda to discuss.
I don't think we can do that, Mike. I think we actually have to vote on the delay. He has to formally request it and we have to actually vote on it. So if I'm correct, Mike, go ahead.
The only thing I can say is because tonight's a regularly posted meeting of the council, you could potentially vote to add this to the agenda tonight with a 2/3 vote if you just want to knock that one out and set the date later. But that's if you guys have a consensus about if you do want to delay the referendum. I mean, my best advice just on the fly is that I do not think we will be ready for May 5th any longer, obviously, with everything the way it is. And we have already been automatically granted a 30-day extension per one of the governor's earlier orders. But I think we need to formalize that.
Yeah.
I agree. This is Brenda Felucci. I agree. We need to formalize it instead of waiting for 2 more weeks, because that date, our next town council meeting, is only a week or 2 weeks before what would be scheduled as the referendum. So this is just a help to communicate to the residents that this is going to be delayed.
I have no issue with that if that's what the council wants to do. My recommendation is to delay until a date to be determined, but that's as specific as I can get right now.
Right, that's fine.
Mike, I don't know, can we do that at this point? Because we're past new and old business at this point. We would have.
I still think you can do it. I think you can, Robert's rules say you can take up new business. You just would take, reconsider new business and just to do a 2/3 vote to put this on the agenda. You could vote to reconsider, or I forgot the exact wording, I'm sorry, but basically you can go back to new business and then add a agenda item.
Okay, so at this point, I will entertain a motion to modify the agenda to add a discussion point for the executive order, which granted us 30 days and a final declaration of whether or not we are going to postpone the May 5th referendum vote.
This is Brenda Felucci, so moved.
A second?
Stephen Jones, I would second, with potentially the amendment that we make sure it's itemized at 8.5 in the agenda.
Okay, any discussion? Brenda?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
John?
Aye.
Lou?
He's muted.
Oh, you're muted, Lou.
Sorry, aye.
Kurt?
Aye.
Okay, and I'm an aye. Lisa, that motion passes unanimously. And then at this point, I will go back to 8.5 and just make sure that everybody understands what we're doing here. Based on the executive order from the governor, we had a 30-day automatic extension to our referendum date for vote for the budget. Well, we also at that time, he suspended all budget stuff. We took that 30 days so we could focus in on the COVID stuff. We are going to be getting all of that back on our schedule, our agenda coming up. But in the meantime, our original referendum vote is the first Tuesday in May. And at this time, what we're doing is formally saying that we are not going to have our referendum on the May 5th date, but we are not setting a date tonight for when it will be, just that we are suspending it. And it will not be May 5th. I mean, the second Tuesday in May. Correct, Mike?
Correct. And I just wanted to add to formalize this, as we were talking about, under the charter, section 9-4, the language says, due to extreme circumstances outside of the town's control, the town manager may make a recommendation to the town council for postponement of the annual budget process and referendum timeline for that fiscal year. So that is what I am doing right now. I am recommending that we postpone our annual budget process and referendum until such date that the council deems appropriate to take it back up. I'm not, obviously, like I said, at the outset of this meeting, there are some decision points council still needs to make about whether the referendum will eventually be done or not based on the governor's order. All that we're doing tonight is saying we're postponing it past the originally scheduled date in May.
Okay. So with that in mind, does anybody have any other questions for Mike before we do the roundtable? All right, Steve, do your thing.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to adopt Mike Rosen's recommendation to postpone the referendum until further notice with a 30-day grace period.
This is Brenda Felucci, second.
Okay, I'm gonna start on the other side. Kurt,
Aye.
Lou,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
Brenda,
Aye.
I'm an aye. Steve, Lisa, that passes unanimously. Okay, anybody else? Back to 14, communications and petitions from council persons. Does anybody else have anything? Steve has his hand up.
All right, Stephen Jones. Just want to make a couple of notes. One question for Mike. Do we have any updates in regards to the library's usage of the 3D printer for PPE or other equipment?
I actually don't know the answer to that question. I think the last time I heard was that the EOC was looking into it. I don't mean to put John on the spot, but I know Barbara initially said she wasn't sure whether or not it was possible to utilize that 3D printer in the manner that we were looking for. John, did you hear any follow-up on that? I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
That's okay. I did speak with her. She was trying to make some face shields. I told her she could take one of the samples that came from Allied Printing that we had some donations from. I think they were still just having a hard time with the plastic, or trying to retrofit or try to get that. So it's a specialty. I think she actually said that she was interested in coming down to the EOC to participate and look at some other items. So that's the last we left it.
Okay. And then my other two comments were just going to be, kind of echoing what Tammy and a lot of other people have been saying, is that, there have been a lot of people helping in town that have been using private 3D printers to produce products like ear guards and other items that have been donated to hospitals. So just a big shout out to all the residents. And even, I've been seeing a lot on social media, the Tolland Anonymous or Anonymous Tollander that's been kind of sending these random gifts of gift cards to local businesses to support them. I don't know who it is, but definitely making a lot of smiles for people. And I think Mr. Rogers, said it pretty often, look for the helpers, whether it's our public safety or anyone in town that's offering a hand out to someone else in need. So just thank you to everyone who's doing what they can when they can. And then one final note was going to be that I did get the word through actually Brenda that that Hoopla has released 1,000 items on their website. So if you're a card member for the Tolland Library, there's materials you can take out up until the 30th that will not be credited towards the Tolland Library. So if you're looking for new materials, I'd encourage residents and students and anyone to reach out to Hoopla, either their app or website, and look through there.
Okay.
Lou has his hand up too.
Go ahead, Lou.
Yeah, thanks. I know that before that, I think Chief Lytle had something to say, and then we moved on to other business. Oh no, I just wanted to follow up to see if you had anything. Chief.
Yeah, I just want to stay on to the meeting to kind of duplicate what everyone has said tonight, that we should be proud as a community. And there's one thing about this community, working over the last 20 years here, when we have the disasters and storms, there's so many good people that come out and show the true colors, and whether it's the businesses that are stopping by, giving the gift cards. And I know we had the business owner stop by and give 2 gift cards, and I actually handed them to the 2 different stations that are manned during the day and the nighttime to support the local businesses. And someone else in town also did one for Wellington Pizza, which the owner lives in town, which was nice. But closing this out, if there's one thing I could encourage, is anybody that is interested in learning more about the Emergency Operations Center. It's not something that we use every single day. It's a makeshift. We make the best of what we can. But there are so many connections in our town and so many people that have so many vested talents where we're trying to make do with what we have. And we've used some printers out of the town, which the Planning and Zoning Office has been gracious to make some signs up for inside the EOC, and we've made do with what we could without spending a lot of money. I mean, it's something that we could up and run right now and spend a lot of money and produce signage and other charts and other things, but I'm sure that there's a lot of people. One of the doctors that lives in town today brought tears to my eyes this morning, knowing that the seniors and some of the other ones that are out there sewing the masks and giving the mask, and took care of her office and some other places. And her husband's on the front line in Hartford, and she's one of the local doctors in our own town. And she said, "Hey, we've maxed out. What do you need?" And it's something where I know Brun and a few others donated some masks to the town today for some of the workers, and trying to put the backup plan together for that to assure that the rest of the employees as well as our public works and other ones are out there. So hopefully, I didn't even make it there today. If I had someone to run to their house to pick up the mask, I would have sent somebody. But like I said, that this is a scary topic that we're dealing with, and seeing some new cases reemerge in China and some other states makes me a little nervous. And if there's something I can throw out there, I know I sent everything to Mr. Rosen. We've had a couple of department heads complete their training as far as the NIMS and ICS stuff. It really gives you a real snapshot that I've heard a lot of people say, well, geez, I don't want to work for John, or I don't want to go down to the training center. It's not me. This is your community. This is your town. And everyone has a part to take involved in this. And whether yesterday's storm could have damaged a lot of trails or a lot of other things, and that's something that we would have had a help and assist. And the library come together to try to use their 3D printer. Residents in town, if there's something that could be done with this, I really encourage most residents or even business owners or other people in town to we're in a lull right now. This is your golden opportunity, that when you're at home sheltering or you have that extra time to take that training, just to give you a snapshot to understand how the ICS system works. And it works in every government, it works in every commission, it works in every office, but you really get a snapshot, because if this hits again and I lose my public safety, the management team of support staff, volunteers, that's what's going to make this town pull through the next event. And I'm nervous of this, the next event that we could ramp up again in September. And luckily we have a solid platform that we're all learning right now with this virtual reality and offline learning. But right now is a lull, and I encourage anybody that would like to come down. That door is open to anyone that if they're not an official town employee or commission member or something else, and they want to come down and get sworn in, to just spend some time and understand it. It's your community, and it's something that right now we have a golden opportunity to make it better, to get more people to support if there's multiple events or multiple situations, because we don't have a large staffing. And right now I can tell you that a lot of my first responders on the front lines are scared, and it's not only from this community. So we do have a solid plan that we meet with the county chiefs, because I'm the county coordinator for Tolland County. So I have a bunch of people working behind the scenes, and to get participation, about 90% of all the communities that participate among animal control, police, fire, EMS, and everything else, we're supporting one another. And that's something, as community goes to community, we need to be here to support each other's communities, to back each other up. And it's something that we're building a stronger relationship. So other than that, I give kudos to the EDC for participating. We did a nice business meeting last Friday. Shame on me, I took it to a day that it was somewhat of a holiday. I thought it would have been better, but we're trying to reschedule another meeting, and a couple of EDC members reached out to me. Right now is a golden time to support some of the other businesses or occupants where some of these makeshift 3D printers or businesses are looking to do something else, and we have a lot of vacant space in town where let's capture it. Let's put somebody in there and let's build upon it. So once again, the door is open. And like I said, my staff needs the help as well. If I can give them a break and give them a day off, especially Kelly and Betsy, because I'm afraid if they get sick, that's my backbone in that office. So if I can keep the system running, that's what it's about. And we're here to support you, and you guys have been great with us. And we're a community, and from the schools, the towns, and every agency, I can't thank enough. I think this community should be proud. And we've had a great town manager to come here, and he hit the ground hard running. I've probably been his thorn in his side for the last couple months, and we've got to know each other on more than a first name basis. So I support him 110%. He's supported us, and he's been supporting every other division of school, businesses, and everything else in town. And he hit the ground hard, and I feel bad for him. Coming from different towns and different states, he's hit this town hard, and I think he's been treated, and this is just me saying it because I'll say it as it is that most people know. He's been treated unfairly wise because as a new town manager coming in and only being here for a few months, we got to give him a chance. But right now, we're shining, and I think that we need to support and stay strong together to get through this, because if it comes back up, we got a solid foundation. We got a solid team in this town, and let's keep it running. So I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Well, thanks, John. I actually I feel great. I don't feel like I'm unappreciated or whatever. So that's okay. Nice of you to
I was
say.
going to say, Mike, I was going to say,
Yeah.
you hit the ground, but bundles bounce.
Yeah. And just to piggyback on what John said about volunteerism and to people that want to maybe take a shift or see what the EOC is all about, there's a phone number and an email address that people can contact. What we like to do is just to funnel people through the EOC, that they can just talk a little bit about what maybe your strengths and skills are. Are you good with data entry? Are you good with typing? Are you good on the phone? That kind of stuff. Or are you more of an outbound person? Do you want to help make deliveries? Do you want to, be part of food drives and things like that? So I would direct people to either the phone number that I don't have offhand, it's in the press releases, or I believe volunteer@tolland.org is the email address. You send an email to the email address, and you can we'll get a response from somebody over at the EOC, and that way John can keep track of you and your hours that you're spending, and make sure that people are healthy when they come and volunteer. We don't want to have anybody that's sick that's going outbound. Thank you.
All right. I think no other petitions from anybody. It gets us to, public list of participation. Any subject with jurisdiction of the town council, 3-minute limit. Anybody have anything they want to add? Please raise your hand, either by pushing the raised hand button or *6, 9, *9.
*9 raises your
If
hand.
you're on your
Yeah.
cell phone and not on a computer, or you can enter a question via the chat to we'll go directly to Mr. Rosen.
And also be sure to state your name and address clearly for the record.
All right, go once, going twice. Looks like we've got nobody. All right then. Oh, yep. Okay. So that gets us to the final piece there, Steve.
Steve, you're
I
muted.
am muted. Okay, there we go. I knew it was going to happen at least once, jumping between the agenda. But so I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 9:03 p.m.
This is Brenda Flusy, second.
All right. Any discussion?
Happy belated birthday to Mike.
Yes, happy belated birthday.
Mike.
That's the only other point of discussion.
Thanks, Steve. It was a weird birthday. I made myself a steak, so I'm happy with that.
It works.
Brenda,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Lou.
I miss you guys. I want to talk more.
I love you, Lou, but I'm going to hang up on you now. Kurt.
Aye.
All right, I'm definitely an aye. Everybody have a good night.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Safe.
Stay well.